Well, good morning, everybody. David McLeod here, coming to you from Belmont, California. And today, I'm all alone at the moment. We've been having some technical problems again. I really don't understand what's going on with Google Hangouts, but Tommy has texted me. He's told me that he's trying to get in, and he will be here as soon as he can. But meanwhile, I just want to talk to you a little bit and say hello and check in with you and talk a little bit about this whole notion of you made me. Now, I know that there's actually some kind of romantic notion about this this phrase, "you made me." I don't know how many songs I've heard where the singer says something like, "You make me feel so fantastic. You make me blossom in the light." I mean, all of these things that we talk about, the way people make us feel, or the way they make us think, or the way they impact us, as if for some amazing thing, all they got to do is turn a dial and we switch. We become more the way they want us to be, or whatever it is. But more commonly, I think where this happens, and you see this in kids a lot, is, "Oh, you made me do that. It's your fault. I wasn't. It's not my fault. You said this, and that made me think this, and all this, and so on, and all these things." And so we in our own immature little way, we start making these connections, and we somehow tie back the responsibility for what we did to the person who was trying to, I don't know, whatever they're trying to do, but they were maybe just trying to be a normal human being. It's a real interesting paradigm, and I think it starts in childhood. I think we learn it in childhood, and sometimes we carry it into our adult lives. So the question is, when I say "you made me," no matter what follows, no matter what comes at the end of that statement, what am I really saying? What am I really saying? I think what I'm saying is, basically, I'm giving my power away. I'm giving all my power to you. I'm saying that you have control over me, over my thoughts, my words, my actions, and my deeds. I am disowning my own sense of responsibility. Is that a useful thing to do? I don't think so. For one thing, when I say "you made me," I could be hurting the other person. I may be, in my own way, trying to get them to react in a certain way, and maybe push their buttons without even consciously being aware that I'm doing that. What's the cost? Well, I think the cost is a lot of pain on both sides of the fence. When I say to you, "You made me do this," and it's a bad thing, let's say, you made me get angry or whatever, you're probably sitting there over the other side saying, "Wait a minute, I'm not responsible for your anger. I'm not responsible for how you feel. I'm not responsible for the way you react. That's your stuff, dude." So that's what this problem is. We create this scenario in which we put the blame for our behavior onto other people, and then we're surprised when they resist. We're surprised and maybe even upset when they say no, or when they fight back, or when they try to get us to take responsibility. And now that's an interesting word too, responsibility. I've heard people talk about it. It's the ability to respond. It's the ability to have the feelings, and have the thoughts, and have the reactions. But it doesn't mean that I necessarily have to react to it. It doesn't mean that I have to give up my power and allow someone else to take control of it. Responsibility means that I have control. I have control of my thoughts. I have control of my feelings. I have control of my reactions. Now, it could be true that the person on the other side has said something or done something. It could be true that they have chosen a particular way of behaving, and it could also be true that I've had my own reaction. But it isn't true that they made me do anything. It isn't true that, it isn't really true that my reaction is their responsibility. Hey, good morning, Tommy. Thank you for showing up. I'm glad you finally made it. And I can see your camera there in the frame on the right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you. I'm working on switching things here.
Okay. Well, anyway, I don't know if you've been paying attention to what I've said, but basically, I've just been talking about how I give up my own power whenever I say something like, you made me. And so the point that I'm trying to get across is that I can take back responsibility. I can reclaim control of my own thoughts, words, actions, and feelings, and stop blaming the other person. What do you want to say about that, Tony?
Yeah, stop blaming. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
All right. Yeah, and we talk about this all the time, David, about pointing fingers, right? If we're pointing fingers at the world of what's going on out there, look, that's giving away energy too. And anytime we say, you made me do something, or you're responsible, you made me feel bad, you're right, absolutely right. We're just giving away our energy. We're giving away our power. We're giving away us. And if you do that time and time again, day after day, no wonder why you're feeling miserable or tired all the time, or feeling like nobody respects you, or nobody pays attention to you, or I don't feel valuable, right? All these things are conditions of giving away our energy.
Yeah.
So it goes from blaming to not shaming at all, but just taking responsibility for what's going on inside ourselves. And that, I think, David, is what we're going to dive deep into here today, is how to take responsibility without taking on shame or guilt or anxiety, and doing it in a way that enables us to be more resilient and more powerful and more present.
Yeah. Well, I really love what you said about when you're pointing fingers, you're pushing energy out of your body. And I hadn't really thought of it that way before. That's a great visual, because what it says is I'm taking all my energy from within and I'm pushing it out of myself. And so then it's, as you said, I wonder, why am I so tired? Why am I so depleted? Oh, you made me depleted. That's what ended up happening. Yeah, so that's a great point, and thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, the whole you made me. Look, we all get into that, right? Because we don't want to take it's not my fault. It's not my fault this didn't work. It's that person's fault, or it's the system's fault, or it's the rat race's fault. It's if as long as we're doing that out there, we're not. We can say not taking responsibility so many times, but what is it? It's deeper than that. It is giving away our energy. What does that really mean? How does that manifest? What does that mean, David? That we're blaming. So we're casting blame. I'm trying to feel like like what's real about that? Like, what do we do? Like, how does that happen? And how to like, just for people to go, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think what comes up for me around this is, it might actually be true. It might actually be true that the other person is in some way at fault, or the system is in some way at fault. But when I let that fault be the entire cause of the situation, I'm not taking any responsibility myself. It could be true that there's a lot of starving people in the world, and I could just sit here and blame all those people out there for not doing their job and making sure that those other people are fed. But what the hell am I doing? I'm kind of feeding that energy. I'm putting judgment energy out there, and it has a negative impact on the world too. What if I came from a place of compassion and said, wow, there's a lot of starving people out there, and I see these people over here are really trying their best to help out, and it's not working. What can I do to help? That's a complete shift in energy, and it takes away this whole idea of blame. It takes away this whole thing of you made me, and it starts becoming more about what can I do? How can I show up in a more responsible way?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. That brings it into focus of where to take this right now. Because that can manifest too. If you're on this planet and you feel like you're here to help, it's very easy to get absorbed in feeling like you have to fix everything, or taking responsibility for the starving people, or taking responsibility for the wars, or taking responsibility for the bigger issues. And that can be very draining, right? You can feel that, and people I've talked to people about this, and And I've actually seen them kind of take this weight of this globe off their shoulders when they realize that they're not responsible for all this.
Mm-hmm.
There's an element of control in here too. What you can't control is you. What you can influence depends on your sphere of influence. But I can't influence the starving population just yet. I can't influence, the wars that are going on in different countries just yet. So there is, but when we're focused on that, when we're like worried about that, not even blaming, right? Let's talk about worry. Let's talk about concern. Let's talk about compassion in a way that is draining us. We're again giving away our energy to things we can't control and can't really affect or impact right now. So it's almost like this, we're a bucket, right? And we have leaks in us. And this is kind of a leak. These are leaks. And depending on how many, bleeding hearts, we're talking about bleeding hearts. I'm not a bleeding heart. A bleeding heart's a leak. That's me giving my energy away. And when I give my energy away, I don't have enough energy to do what I'm here to do. I'm not here to fix or help what I'm here to fix or help. So there's something in this leaking bucket that we need to be aware of what's leaking and why, and decide if that's where we want our energy and attention going.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, I thought of the song, There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, dear Liza. There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza. There's a hole. I don't know. And it's true. It's true. I think if we're not careful, we poke holes in our own buckets, and we allow our own energy to drip out through those holes. It's our job to patch up our own buckets. And so if we are bleeding, like you say, bleeding hearts, we got to look at that. What's really going on? What are we trying to do here? And I think that, as you say, focusing our energy from a place of love and looking for how we can support without taking any responsibility for what other people do, but taking only responsibility for our own thoughts, words, actions, and feelings, that can really do a lot to patching up those holes, to making us feel whole. Wow. I never thought that would show up, but it did. Anyway, so you know what I'm saying? And I think that that's a big and very important piece, is this whole responsibility thing allows us to find the necessary elements to patch up our buckets and maybe even polish them up so that they're brand spanking new and they never leak again.
All right, now you're getting into the depth of what we've been kind of dabbling into for the last several weeks. Last week we talked about emotional resilience. And again, emotional resilience, you think about that, that's patching up a bucket. Because if you're not emotionally resilient, then your emotional energy is like flying all over the place and being, taken advantage of, or your buttons are getting pushed, or you're giving it away. And so it all kind of ties together again in having more of a resilient bucket. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like you're shutting yourself off to the world. It's not like you're closing down your heart or your compassion. It's just the opposite. Somebody taught me once the difference between empathy and sympathy. And empathy is like seeing a situation for what it is, and oh my gosh, I do have compassion. I do, like wish that there is something that can go different, or can be, or how it can help a situation or a person or a whole planet. But then sympathy is kind of when you get into the energy with that situation, like you become part of that energy. You feel it. Like, I feel the suffering. I feel the hunger. I feel the pain. And in that respect, we're kind of talking semantics here, but you know what I'm saying, David? It's the difference between like having empathy and being in the mess, because when you're in the mess, you can't think straight and you can't act straight, and it's hard to come from a place of love when you're kind of getting pulled down into the tar. And I'm bouncing all over different metaphors here, but I'm trying to find that distinction of we want to be compassionate, loving, energetic, emotional beings, yet we don't want to be victims of the energy and the emotions and the sympathy and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's very good. I've always had a problem with these two words as well. I think that for me, empathy is about having my own experience while you are having yours, but it's a related experience. Whereas sympathy is more, I'm trying to feel exactly what you're feeling. and falling into whatever is going on there. I totally get what you're saying. And yeah, there is a difference between the two, and it's a pretty subtle difference. Both of them involve feeling. I think that's the real part of it, and that's where the path part comes in. I think it's about feeling something, and one of them is about feeling your own feelings while connecting with someone, and the other one is about somehow getting enmeshed with the other person's feelings and having those feelings rather than your own, or maybe they're mixed together. So that's really the way I see it. But either way, I think you're right. I think that what we want to do is stay connected to our empathy. And that means being clear about our own feelings, being clear about our own thoughts, our own words, our own actions, so that we can take responsibility for that. Some people might say, well, what about children? Who takes responsibility for them? Okay, we have a culture in which we say that a person is not really able to take responsibility until they're so many years old, until they've lived on this planet for so many years, which I think, okay, if that's the way the culture wants to do it, I'm okay with it. But I look at my own life, and I think about some of the choices I made when I was very young. Particularly, I think I've shared the one about the 8 words my mother said to me when I was 3 years old that shifted everything. Well, is my mother responsible for that? Some might say, yeah, she said the words. But really, I, even as a 3-year-old, made a choice. No one else made that choice for me. So even though I justified blaming my mom and saying, you made me do all this shit, the truth is, I did it on my own, and I was doing it because I mistakenly understood what she was trying to say. And that's really what we're talking about here, So now I can look back at that and realize I made the choice. It was me and me only. No one else did it. It's my responsibility, even though I was only 3 years old. So responsibility starts, for all of us, the moment we come into existence on this planet.
So how to stay connected responsibly, because you started that beautiful talking about being connected as well. And we don't want to shut that off, right? We don't want to shut down our emotions. We don't want to shut off our connections. We want connections. We need connections. If we get down to the core of why we're here on this planet, a lot of it's to have this human interaction, to have connection. So how do we have that connection without getting dragged into the other person's muck and mire? And this was something that I was hoping we would get to with Kristen last week, because Kristen and I have talked about this, in that a counselor, a psychiatrist, she sees a lot of psychiatrists that are burning out. And we've talked about, why are they burning out? Well, one, they're told not to connect. They're afraid that if they get involved, the word's involved, with other people emotionally, that they're going to get caught in their drama and sucked in. So how they're trained to behave is, I'm doing this with my hands intentionally, is from here up. Mm-hmm. They're trained to know what symptoms are, and to think through, like, what kind of symptoms, what are they expressing, because it's not, can't diagnose themselves. So I have to think and diagnose for myself. And they're flipping through an encyclopedia page, or their study book, as they're listening to somebody, all in the head, all thinking. And then they're trying to figure out what's inside the mind of another human being, which is a crazy feat in itself. That's why they burn out. They're burning out because they're not connecting. Because they have this false perception and false idea that if they connect, they're going to get pulled into the emotional drama of the other person. So what we're getting at here, David, is how do we connect cleanly and clearly with another human being, compassion, love, all that, giving, flowing, and not take on the other person's baggage, even though we sit there and listen to them for an hour, complaining about how horrible their life is, and telling us these miserable, horribly abusive stories. Yeah. How do we do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes it is difficult. I know that, when I've done coaching with people who've expressed really, really deep pain, I found myself crying at times, just being with them. And, it's not like I am taking it on. I don't take it on. I just feel what I'm feeling and allow the feelings to come through, but I'm still fully present to the other person. I'm still saying, Yeah, that sounds like it was a really painful experience. Do you want to tell me more about that? And let's just work through it bit by bit by bit. What messages did you learn? What stories did you make up about yourself, about your life? Are those things true? You know, and I help people to kind of work their way through it. And before you know it, their process is complete. They've expressed all the emotion. They're getting back to that place of, yeah, you know, it was painful and it was a hard process to go through it. But now I feel great. Now I feel like I'm just so much lighter. I'm so much more open. I'm so much more relaxed now. And I feel like I can see clearly in my mind. I can think clearly. So thank you for listening. And that's all it takes. Just listen. You know, don't try and diagnose. Oh, it sounds like you were abused by your mother. No, don't do that. Just say, so, tell me what's going on. Even if you think you know the perfect answer, no, it's about listening. It's about listening and just hearing. Let them come up with the answer themselves. So many times I've had the perfect answer in my mind and I've heard them say it and then they move on. No, that's not really it. It's this thing over here. Beautiful. They came to it on their own. So that's the secret, I think, Tommy, is listening.
That's exactly it, David. They come to it on their own when you give them the space that their brain can't give themselves because it's all so crowded and jumbled in the mire. You give them the space that they can then like be in and get stuff out. So let's talk about the getting out, because that's, you know, they're sharing, you said they're releasing, they're letting go. And that right there is the skill that I know I've practiced for myself. You said to have emotions. I have emotions. Yeah, I'll cry with them too, David. I will, because there's some horrible stuff happening to people and I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't hang on to it. I don't make that sad emotion part of my story. I experience it at the moment and I could feel horrendous sorrow and sadness and grief. But I experience it and I let it go. That right there is part of maybe this emotional resilience. And what we're talking about is having all the emotion that life's presenting to you, but don't stick them in your backpack. Don't carry it around. Don't make it part of your baggage and your luggage and your weight. Maybe there is part of the secret sauce.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you mentioned a few things in that little share that just make me think of two topics that you and I are constantly talking about: presence and flow. These are the two most important things I think that we can ever do. And that is just to become present to what is right now. And if you're feeling something, be with it. Be with it. Allow it to come up. Allow it to come through. Allow it to flow. That's the point. And as you do that, you open up space within yourself to heal, to forgive, to be grateful, and to love. Those are the key things that you're trying to do when you get present and you allow yourself to just flow, be in the moment. When you dwell on the past with your mind, allow your mind to keep chattering at you about things that happened way back here in the past. Or if you focus on things in the future, you say, oh my God, that's never going to work because of this and that and the other thing, and it's tied to this thing back here. Guess what? You're way out in the past or the future, and you're not here in the center, in the present moment. And when you're out of the present moment, you're simply not flowing. You can't. You're stuck in something way back there or way out there in the future. And that, my friends, is the secret: presence and flow. If you're in presence, you're not going to blame anybody for anything. You're not going to say, you made me for anything, because I'm right here, right now. That's it.
That is it. I was just talking to a friend a little while ago before this call, and she was explaining to me this meditation that a teacher taught to her once that has really had a huge difference in her life. And the meditation itself was what it was, a guided breathing type meditation. But part of the meditation was that she learned two words, and it was the same word that kind of had two meanings. And it's namaha, namaha. And she would say namaha and namaha when something seemed to be going bad, or maybe it was going to drag her into some turmoil, or you're going to drag her into the future or drag her into the past. And what the word namaha means in this case is accept and release. Have those emotions, accept them. Okay, I'm having this feeling right now. It feels pretty miserable, or it feels pretty fantastic. Have it, release it. That idiot just did something stupid. Accept it, release it. Accept it, release it. It's presence and flow. That's what it's going to keep you from getting yanked out of presence, and it's going to keep you from getting pulled out of flow. Namaha, namaha. Accept it, release it. And in here is an extremely powerful lesson in being more resilient and being more in your power and have your bucket leaks all patched up.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. You were talking about emotions may be miserable or they may be joyful. What I've noticed about emotions is they really don't have, I don't have those thoughts of, oh, this is painful or whatever. I just notice what my body is doing when I'm fully present to the emotion I'm talking about, not when I'm thinking about my emotion or trying to think it through. Remember we did that episode, I don't know, long way back. You can't think your emotions. I'm sorry. You can't think your feelings. You can only feel your feelings. And that's what happens. If I'm thinking my feelings, that's when I have the idea, oh, this is painful. Oh, this is miserable. Oh, this, blah, 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 blah. But when I just feel my emotions, it just is. My emotion just is. And I've come to this place now where I absolutely love when I actually get into pure sadness, because then the tears flow and I can just feel that release. It's opening. It's like a blessing. And how much of my life have I spent trying to stop my tears? So my body has a natural tendency to kind of clench up when the sadness feeling starts happening. It takes a concerted effort on my part to just relax, 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 so that the tears will flow, the energy will flow, and afterwards I feel absolutely fantastic. So my suggestion, coming again, namaha, namaha, presence.
Accept it, experience it. We talked a few weeks ago, maybe last week, about feelings, right? Don't be afraid of feelings. Don't be afraid of your emotions. We are taught to be afraid of our emotions. We are taught to link our feelings with thoughts, as you said nicely. And then those create, they're actually called samsaras. We create these kind of heavy weights in ourselves that some people collect and then they get back pain. Some people collect and they get neck pain. Some people collect and their whole body aches. Some people collect and it turns into illness and disease. So we're not just talking superficial la-la woo-woo stuff here. We're talking about a condition inside of our body-mind configuration here that can lead to physical distress, pain, suffering, illness, disease, early death, all sorts of non-fun things. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of motivation here to really feel your feelings. Feel them and let them go. Accept, release. Stay present. Accept, release. Stay present. Namaha, namaha. Stay in the moment. Stay in the flow as much as you can. And like you said, David, even when things are outside going crazy, or you're having a memory of something that's bringing back moments of sadness, or you're in a situation, you just lost something or somebody, and you're feeling sad, feel it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt worse to subdue it, and it's going to hurt worse in the long term to kind of package it up and bag it and hold it around with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Accept and release.
Accept and release, very, very important. And you know, we tell you to stay in the present moment. Let's face it, we have lives. And there's no question that you're going to have to think about what you're doing tomorrow as you get up in the morning and make your plans for the day and so forth. You're absolutely going to have to plan your day. And as you go through your day, you're absolutely going to have a memory of, oh, I forgot to do this. I was supposed to do such and such. Or, geez, you know, I was just thinking about my mom who passed 7 or 8 years ago, and it's such a nice feeling to have. What I'm saying is, when the memory happens, be present to the memory. When the idea of something that you have to do tomorrow comes up in your mind, be present to that. Bring it into this moment and be fully present to whatever is going on. It's not, what we're trying to suggest is try to avoid dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. That's what we're talking about. But if you have a memory, sure, bring it to the present and just be with it for a moment, because maybe there's a gift there for you to learn. Or when you remember something about what you're supposed to be doing in the future, great, just bring it to the present and be with it. When you do these things, you can stop almost instantly blaming anybody else for anything that's going on in your life. In other words, you're not going to say, "You made me," anymore.
Nice, David. Hey, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're having a guest come on. Chris Kyle's going to be joining us. We've been talking about service and purpose and bringing it more into the world. And we're going to be expanding on that theme a little bit. Next week, Chris is going to be talking about becoming a global messenger. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to seeing Chris again. Haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah, that'll be great.
All right.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody.